Have you ever felt like your heart was so broken that it could never be put back together? Maybe it was because of an unexpected loss, a betrayal you never saw coming, or the overwhelming feeling that no one truly understands what you're going through. In those moments, the pain feels unbearable, as though something has been ripped out of you, leaving behind an emptiness that seems impossible to fill. But what if I told you there is a power that can restore even the most shattered hearts? It's not something that comes from the world around us, because this world often deepens our wounds. It's something that comes from within, or rather, from something greater than us. Faith. Not blind faith, but the kind that connects us to something deeper that reminds us there is hope even in the brokenness. Broken hearts. It sounds like such a simple expression, but it carries a pain that only those who've experienced it can truly understand. When something or someone breaks our heart, it's not just sadness we feel. It's as if the ground beneath us has vanished, as if a part of us has been torn away, leaving us standing there trying to gather the pieces without knowing where to start. Maybe you've been through this, or maybe you're going through it now. It might have been the end of a relationship you thought would last forever. Maybe it was a divorce that didn't just end a marriage, but also shattered the dreams, plans, and hopes tied to it. Or perhaps it was the loss of someone you deeply loved, leaving behind a void that seems impossible to fill. I knew someone who went through this in a deeply painful way. She was a close friend who lost her husband unexpectedly. They had built a life together, a story, and then suddenly, everything changed. She told me that in the first few months, the pain was so overwhelming that she could barely get out of bed. There was no explanation, no justification that could ease the heaviness in her chest. She would say, "I can't imagine a future without him. All I see now is darkness." And at that moment, there wasn't much to say. Just being by her side and respecting her grief was all that could be done. But, something began to change when she decided, little by little, to make space for faith. It wasn't a faith that magically erased her pain, but one that gave her the strength to live one day at a time. She started praying, even when she didn't know what to say. She began to remember that God never promised there wouldn't be pain, but He did promise to walk with us every step of the way. It reminds me of David in the Bible. He knew what it was like to have a broken heart. Think of Psalm 34:18. "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." David wrote these words at a time when he was being pursued, fleeing to save his life. He was hurt, betrayed, and afraid. Yet even then, he found the strength to carry on through faith. He knew God was near, even when it seemed like no one else was. That's what faith does. It doesn't erase the pain like flipping a switch, but it gives us the assurance that we're not alone. It's like an anchor that keeps us steady even when life's seas are raging. I remember a situation I went through a few years ago, something that broke my heart in a way I thought I'd never recover from. It was the loss of a very important friendship. This was someone I shared everything with, someone who knew me deeply. And suddenly, that person was no longer in my life. It felt like I had lost a part of myself. I remember praying and feeling like the words weren't enough, like God was distant. But in the silence, I began to realize something. God hadn't left. He was there, holding the pieces of my heart, while I could barely muster the strength to follow Him. Maybe you've felt that too, as though faith was all you had left when everything else seemed lost. Maybe you're wondering if you'll ever be able to rise from where you are now. And I believe you will. Not because the pain will suddenly disappear, but because God specializes in restoring what's been broken. Just as He did with David, with my friend, and even with me, He meets us in our weakness, in our pain, and reminds us that there's still hope. Looking back, I can see that even when the heart is broken, there's room to start again. Faith shows us that we don't have to put the pieces back together on our own. God does that for us, and do you know what's even more beautiful? Those broken pieces can become part of something even more extraordinary. Like a shattered vase repaired with gold, our stories can shine in ways we never imagined. If your heart is broken today, I want you to know that it's okay to feel the pain. It's okay to not know how to move forward. But I also want to remind you that you don't have to face this alone. Faith is a constant reminder that God is near. Even when everything feels lost, He sees you. He understands your pain. And He is working, even now, to transform that pain into something that will one day make sense. I know that when your heart is broken, everything feels heavy. Even the simplest things, like getting out of bed, can seem impossible. And it's okay if that's how you feel right now. You don't have to try to fix everything all at once. You don't even need to know exactly where to start. Sometimes, the only thing we can manage is to take one small step, and that's enough. I think about my friend, the one who lost her husband so suddenly. When she began trying to rise from the emotional winter she was living in, do you know what she did? Something simple. She would take a piece of paper and write down small things she was grateful for. At first, she told me it felt impossible to find anything, but she wrote them anyway. Today, I managed to get out of bed. Or, the sun looked beautiful this morning. These were small gestures, but slowly they started to change something within her. They didn't erase the pain, but they made room for hope to gently enter. And you can try something like this too. Maybe it's writing, or simply pausing for a moment to think of one thing, just one, that you can be grateful for today. And you know, taking care of yourself can also be one of those small steps. It doesn't have to be anything big. It could be preparing a simple meal, taking some time to rest, or even opening a window to let in the light. Sometimes, these small acts remind us that we're still here, that there's still something good in the midst of the chaos. If you can, I want to encourage you to do one thing today. Value something you've accomplished, no matter how small it seems. Celebrate it. Every small step matters. And remember, God is with you in every movement, sustaining you even when it feels like you don't have the strength to keep going. He is taking care of the details while you take one step at a time, and that's already a beginning. Broken hearts. Shakespeare once said that the world doesn't stop for us to piece ourselves back together. And he was right. Life goes on even when we feel like it should pause. Bills still need to be paid, children still need care, work still demands our attention. But when we're hurting, all of it feels unbearable. The pain consumes us, as though we're bleeding from the inside out, but no one around us seems to notice. It's lonely, isn't it? That feeling of carrying an invisible weight, of suffering internally while the world keeps spinning at its usual pace. I know how that feels. I've been there. And maybe you're there now. And I know it can feel unfair. The world keeps turning while you're stuck, trying to gather the pieces of your broken heart. The pain is real, and sometimes it feels impossible to imagine how things could ever get better. But you know, it's precisely in those moments that we need to remember something greater. You're not carrying this weight alone. God doesn't ignore your pain. He doesn't expect you to gather all the pieces by yourself. He is present, even when everything feels dark, holding you up in ways you may not be able to perceive right now. Faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting that, even when everything feels lost, God is there, right beside you. Remember Jesus on the cross. He knew what it was to suffer deeply. He cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 27:46. At that moment, he felt the weight of abandonment, pain, and loneliness. But God was there. He never left Jesus alone, not for a single moment. And just as he was with Jesus, he is with you now. I know it's not easy. Sometimes all you want is to hide, waiting for the pain to disappear. But even in the moments when you don't know how to move forward, God is taking care of you. He doesn't rush your process, but he walks with you, sustaining every step. With time and with faith, the pieces of your heart will begin to come back together. Not because the world stopped, but because God sustained you as you kept going, even while broken. And even if everything feels confusing today, remember, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3. You are not alone. You never have been, and you never will be.